John 1:37. Kai ekusan hoi dua mathetai autu laluntas, kai ekaluthesan to Jesu. Translation. And the two disciples heard him as he was speaking, and they followed Jesus. Let's look at several things here. First, to Jesu. Why is that in the dative case? Well, first of all, how do you know it's dative? Well, the article always tells you the truth. It's dative, masculine, singular. Some of you thought it was genitive because of that ending. But remember, with the paradigm for the name Jesus, the genitive form and the dative form are spelled the same. So either the context or the article has to clarify whether it's genitive or dative. Clearly here with the article, this is dative. Why is it dative? Well, because it's following a verb that takes its object in the dative. Remember, there are several verbs in Greek that have alternate direct object cases, right? Some verbs take their direct object in the genitive. Some verbs take their direct object in the dative. Sometimes people don't like to call them dative direct objects and genitive direct objects. Some grammarians want to be, I guess, more precise and say it's a genitive complement or a dative complement. And this is following the verb here, akalutheo, which means to follow. Hopefully you were not led astray with that theta. You're like, that's a passive. Well, if it's part of the spelling of the stem, then it is not a passive, right? Akalutheo means to follow. We do have an augment there. We have a sigma. Bam, that's an aorist active indicative, and that's a third person plural because it's referring to the two disciples. This is a verb that's followed by a dative object. That's why, or a dative complement. That's why Jesus is in the dative. Up here we had the verb akuo. Notice again a lengthened initial vowel, a sigma alpha. That also is an aorist active indicative, third person plural, because the subject of both is the two disciples. And this autu, you might have think his two disciples, but we really need an object for the verb akuo, and akuo is frequently followed by a genitive object or a genitive complement. And that, now sometimes it is also followed by the accusative, so you could have ekusan autan, but here we have autu, and then the autu is further described with this participle, right? Also genitive masculine singular. It's talking about John, they heard him, right, autu, as he was speaking. And so, what do they do when they hear John declaring Jesus is the Lamb of God? They followed Jesus.